Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Estrella podcast. My name is Danielle Miranda, and before I introduce today's guest, if you would like to learn more about the Estrella platform and you're interested in knowing what it is and what's going to be happening on the platform, please go to estrella.chat, where you can sign up for the newsletter and get more information in regards to the exciting things that are going to happen on Estrella. Now, for today's guest, I'm really excited to introduce psychic medium Vicki Snyder-Young. Hi, Vicki. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I like your natural curls.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, very curly today. It's humid. I'm in New York and it's humid
Oh,
here.
it's interesting. It's starting to get humid here in Ohio too. And
Wow.
it was deceiving yesterday. It looked like it was cold. And then I stepped outside and I was like, oh, it's really warm. So I
Yeah.
had to take off a jacket and a long sleeve, which I
Yeah.
guess is not necessarily a bad thing because we're getting out of that winter phase, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank
Yes.
God.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm really excited to talk to you and dive a little deeper into the things that you do as a psychic
Sure.
medium.
Sure.
So, my first question is, I guess we'll just dive right in.
Okay.
At what point did you know this is what I want to do as a psychic medium? I want to help people. I want to help with healing emotionally, mentally, spiritually. At what point did you know that
Yeah.
this was truly your calling?
Right. It wasn't that long ago, actually. It was, I would say, 2000. It's been about 15 years, I think, that I've been doing this work professionally that I opened up. So I always kind of had an interest in it, but I had no one to really work with or tell me, I had any abilities or any of that. So I always was kind of fascinated by it. But I can't say that I'm one of those born into a family of them or anything like that. So for me, it developed later in life and it exploded when it did. So it was already there and I just didn't realize it, that I had
Okay.
abilities.
Now, may I ask, when you said it exploded later on in life, is that due to an NDE, a near death experience? Like, what was the
Yeah.
catalyst of the explosion of realizing, whoa, I have this
Yeah.
gift that I really can use and share with other people?
I didn't have any NDE or any of that. It just, for me, what I say is I followed the breadcrumbs. So I went to a psychic fair and they told me I could be doing what they're doing. But I needed to meditate. So I joined a meditation group, and then that led to me to going to a spiritualist church. They talked about that. So all the little clues that I had on my path led me to a spiritualist church where I was able to develop as a medium and a spiritual healer. And it just exploded once I opened up to that and followed the breadcrumbs, as I say. They probably were giving me breadcrumbs for a while, but I just didn't know.
Yes. Little tidbits here and there.
Yeah. In fact, it took at my house, two times I woke up in the middle of the night that smelling like the house was on fire. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was a big, big one that pushed me because I knew that it was coming from something other than a fire because it wasn't a fire. So they had to do that
Wow.
to really get my attention.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Would you say that that was their way of communicating with you when they did that?
Yeah, they got my attention.
Okay. Now, do they
No,
still communicate with you in that way?
not with fire. No,
Okay.
no, thank God. That was pretty scary. I had teenagers at the time, so they'd be up at the middle of the night. So I thought they were cooking and did something, were burning the house down. In fact, I had to even touch the door because it was so strong. I thought the door's going to be hot. And then nope, this is the spirit. There was a person that lived in the house that had committed suicide. Um,
Mm,
and he didn't do it in the house, but it was where he was raised. So he was trying to get my attention and I felt good about it. He was okay. I didn't feel bad about it, but it was a little scary at first. And then I'm like, this is definitely coming from somewhere else. I can't ignore the smell, and
Did
then the
you
push.
know did you know that that spirit was in the house when you moved in, or was this when you had this awakening?
I didn't know he was there. I feel like I found out after I bought the house that, I asked probably about the family. They lived there for many years. And they told me that someone told me that the son had killed himself, that he, had been struggling and whatnot. So, and then I did see like he wrote his name in the garage. And when I saw that, I just felt a connection, even though I wasn't, a medium at that point, knowing I was, but I did feel for him. And in that, seeing his name, I felt just a connection. Like he
Mm.
lived here,
May I ask,
he thought of, yeah.
do you still connect with him?
I haven't, but now that we're talking about him, I feel like he's coming through. But I don't
Mm.
remember his name even now. It's been,
Yes.
I moved in that house 25 years ago. So yeah, it's
Okay.
been some time that I've really thought about him. But yeah.
Yeah. So diving a little deeper on what you had said a couple of minutes prior, you talked about after you joined a meditation group, you went to a spiritualist church. What
Yes.
is the difference between a spiritualist church and a regular church?
There's a lot of difference.
Okay.
Spiritualist churches believe improving the continuity of life. So it's a church of mediums
I
and
see.
spiritual healers. So their task and belief is to prove through mediumship and spiritual healing that life does go on, that it's
Mm.
and that our loved ones are there with us and whatnot. So um, when I finally found the church, because I couldn't find it on the street, and spirit totally guided me and to it finally.
Mhm.
um, and I went in there. I just cried because that's like, oh my God, I'm home, and I didn't even know why. So it
Yes.
just felt like home. So, and it was actually it's the really the birthplace of spiritualism. It was the mother church of spiritualism.
Yes. Yes. With that being said, how were you led there? Because it's not like I could drive down the street, right, and just
Right.
find a spiritualist church.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, it sounds like a spiritualist church is a very tight-knit community that you have to either have a connection or you have to be guided to. So how were
Yeah.
you guided to this spiritualist church?
So I was going to like a meditation event. Again, I followed the breadcrumbs. It was like a crystal singing bowl meditation I went to. And I just listened and observed people. And they were talking about this Plymouth Spiritualist Church, And I'm like, what is that? And then they told me, I said, okay, I'll have to check it out sometime. And it took me quite maybe 6 months before I was drawn to actually go there. I was raised Catholic, and I wasn't really practicing Catholicism, but that was what I knew.
Yes.
I just always had a fear of death too instilled in me. And so the day I decided okay, I'm going to go to a church service at this new church. Never been in any other church in my whole life other than Catholic church. And it had been snowing. The roads were icy. And the church was in a residential neighborhood. It was just in a house.
Mhm.
So I kept going up and down the street. I'm like, I know it's here. I could not see it, even though there was a big sign out front. Just
Mm.
never saw it. And finally I just said, to the universe, to God, whoever, was listening, this is it. I'm going down the street one last time. And if I don't see it, I'm going home, you know? So walking across the street was a woman, and she was like right in the middle of the road. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's icy. I'm going to slam into her, because I had to brake, slam the brakes on. And when I stopped, I looked over, and there was the church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was definitely meant to go there because I was
Mhm.
ready to give up. So that was always just so nothing happens by chance. But I'm like, well, is this woman crazy? Why is she walking in front of me on this icy road and stopping in the middle of the road? So she was
Right.
leading me, Spirit told her to do, she didn't know it, but
That
she,
is
she was
great.
guided to kind of hesitate there in the middle of the road, right at the right time. So there is no synchronicity.
The minute
Everything
you spoke
happens.
up and said, "I'm going home if I can't find it," Spirit was like, "Nope, nope, here
You
you
will
go."
go there. And
Yes.
then it felt like home. It felt like coming home. Yeah.
What would you say during that experience of being in the spiritualist church? What was the aha moment for you?
I feel like everyone was just so open. There was no, people were friendly. Um, just seeing mediums work, and giving messages. It just felt like home. I mean, I was still very early on my path, and I did not even know I was a medium or a
Wow.
healer. I didn't know I was either one. So
Yes.
it just was a very something just within me knew that
Yes.
was going to be the place. Yeah.
Now, with that being said, you had mentioned in the beginning of this
Uh-huh.
episode that you don't have any other family members that are mediums, correct? So
No, not really. I had a cousin that was psychic, but not, I wouldn't say she was a medium.
so my
And
question is, would you be considered a first how how is the generational thing
I yeah,
discovered with
yeah,
mediums and psychics?
that I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Especially if you don't have like for them, their relatives probably were out,
Mm,
out of the closet, but so many back in the day just didn't share that they had those abilities. So um, I do know, like, a great aunt, she had kind of premonitions and stuff, but I wouldn't say anyone was really a medium or anything like that. I have healers, healers in my family, um, more Native American than that, like that. But no one that really did what I do, because my aunt will say you're the first person that's actually doing the work.
wow.
So they might have had abilities, but they just maybe like that. I don't know.
Mhm.
Just a little maybe.
Knowing that your family now knows what you do, I believe that your family now
Yes.
knows what you
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Has that sparked any interest from anybody in your family to maybe go down their own spiritual path to see if they too
Hmm.
have these gifts or
No,
if they
I
have the
don't think
ability to
so.
activate them?
N- No, but I have a really small family, so
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, very small. So it doesn't, I'm sure um my children probably have some abilities, but they're not open to that at this point. But you know what, that could change too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk to you about shamanic healing.
Okay.
So, diving into this now, let's start with what is shamanic healing?
Oh, geez. Shamanism is kind of it's a belief, it's a kind of a religious, it's not religious, a spiritual, it's a spiritual belief, a spiritual practice, very nature based. So a shaman travels outside of ordinary reality through like goes into a trance to connect to spirits on the other side for healing for people that come to. And there's all forms, so many different forms of shamanism, and I've trained and studied several different ones, so it's kind of a collective for me. But I love doing that work because you can go really deep with people,
Mhm.
depending on how deep you want to go. But it's a lot about letting go of things. It's also a path. It's a life path. Um, so while I've trained in shamanism, it's also like taking a walk around the wheel, the medicine wheel, and
Mhm.
that's really what we feel our life is about. It's going around the medicine wheel. So it's learning to let go of our shadows, our projections, releasing, facing death, not being afraid of death, stepping into stillness, and just until we finally come to our time of passing, and then we're one with spirit. And we've kind of let go of all of those things that we need. We take care of our junk in the life so we don't have to come back and do it again, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
all the projections, the hurts, we take care of that. We heal that so that when we cross over, it's we're dying consciously. We're not, and we've taken care of stuff. So it's easier.
You had stated that it's a form of trance. Are you the one in trance, or is your client the one in trance when doing the shamanic?
I am.
Okay.
So I'll journey for them to be shown what needs to be done. We do a lot of what we call extraction, so removing things from their energy field. So I will be shown that. We do like power animal retrievals, soul retrievals. So all of those things, you go into trance to do that. You step into non-ordinary reality. So a shaman shifts, there is no time, so you shift into other dimensions and realities and get what the client needs that way.
How do you know how far to go back with a client? Like when you're going into different dimensions, how do you know how far you should go back into their lives or past lives?
To me, it's not necessarily that I'm controlling that, how far I go. It's what I'm shown. And it's what they are ready to deal with, because I've worked with people for years, and then all of a sudden something like, where did that even come from? It wasn't even on the radar of something that they needed to work on. So it's definitely a process for the client as well. So all healing isn't just like one and you're done. It's a process of everything keeps unfolding and coming to the surface and to deal with. So it is I love the work. It's fascinating because I do personally, I don't know about other people who practice shamanic energy medicine, but a lot of past life stuff really is affecting people in this lifetime. And I wouldn't have believed it until I've seen it over and over and over. So it's fascinating.
So you're able to see if someone has been struggling with something in a past life or past lives.
Yes.
And you're able to see if they are currently dealing with that same issue in their life right now.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And and that all unfolded. That wasn't an instant ability of mine. That has unfolded over time. But when I was doing healing on several people, numerous people, I can sense like, wow, energy wise, they have something like a spear in their side from a past life when they were killed. And I'll energetically remove it because you still have that memory there, the energy memory of that wound, that way you died. And so afterwards I would tell them, oh, I saw this here, I removed it. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I always had pain on that side. And they could never figure out why. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, and then the person came back, several months later and said, Vicki, that pain is not ever come back. So I would have never honestly believed it until I've had numerous people tell me those kinds of things. I'm like, wow, there really is something to this. So for me, I trust, but I have to verify. So can be a little skeptical until, I'm like, okay, I feel this, is it my imagination? Is it really, until people have told me, that the pain is gone from an area that I worked on. It's like, wow. So the past life stuff really does affect us in this lifetime.
If you don't mind sharing, could you describe what happens at the start of a shamanic healing session for you and your client? Like, what is it that you experience? What do you feel? Do you see light? Are you tingly? Is there anything that kind of happens to you to channel into your client's past life or dimensions or anything like that?
Well, I don't necessarily see, so I do get impressions, but I don't see like a lot of people. It's just more of a knowing. A lot of, I'm more clairaudient, so a lot of hearing. So I hear like, go here, go there, do this, do that. They need this, they're feeling that. So it's a lot of hearing and feeling. But to go to for me, I'm always the spirits know when I'm working and when I'm not, so it's kind of just automatic. Like they know I'm going to be doing a healing, so I'm talking to the client, finding out maybe what a healing intention is. It depends on what the healing is I'm doing, and what type of like shamanic healing I'm doing. But I just, to get into that trance, I either drum or rattle. So that
Hmm.
repetitive beat, a quick beat that will get you into a trance
So
so that you
you're
can journey.
that is so neat. So in the middle of a session, you're using a rattle or a drum with
Yes.
your
Yeah.
client? Really?
I rattle a lot. I rattle a lot. And I have all different kinds of rattles because each one has a different tone. And sometimes if something is deeper within, I might need a deeper tone. So yeah, definitely. And drumming, I always drum to begin with because it helps you to get in your power. So to do the work, you have to step into your power. You have to be able to do the extractions and the things that you're going to be doing. So that helps. You kind of merge with your power animal to get the power, and you drum. And so you kind of, you open sacred space. There's there's a lot of things that you do that go into it, but it's that power, really. And it's not power to use against someone. It's your own personal power, your strength.
Hmm.
It's almost like clearing yourself and getting prepared to work.
Yes. This is definitely confirmation because yesterday I was talking to another psychic and
Uh-huh.
they literally said one of the best ways to channel and to really get connected into your client or into meditation or whatever it is in the
Mhm.
spiritual realm is through music and sound. And they had
Yeah.
mentioned drums, rattles.
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
so cool to hear
Yes.
you
Yeah.
validate that.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. In other countries, they might use a psychedelic type of drug. Well, we don't do that here. We use the drum beat to really do that, or the rattle.
Yes. Yes. Very interesting. So, if you don't mind sharing, what has been one of the coolest or most intriguing sessions you've had with a client without
Oh,
saying their name or anything like that?
yes.
Could you
Oh,
describe a situation?
uh, with healing or readings or
Whatever you'd
anything.
like to share.
There's been so many. I'll be honest. Because of the work I do, I have no memory. So most of
Oh,
the time I don't remember stuff. And like right now, nothing is coming. I've had so many aha moments though,
mhm,
where all I can say is that I'm constantly learning. So
mhm,
anything in life that I always urge people, because this is a lesson I've learned, and it's from doing this work, is that you don't judge. Don't judge other people's journey.
mhm,
Don't think, oh, that's not true, because the spirit world will surprise you with the things that you most likely would not think could ever happen
mhm,
are absolutely happening. So
mhm.
there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes than our minds could ever fathom. And often that comes through it with readings of just how close our relations are to us and the work that they're doing, reasons for why they pass. I mean, all just so many. There's been so many. Um, just proofs of that there's so much more that goes on. that we could just never even wrap our minds around
Yes.
it.
I heard it's not out of the norm to be really connected in a session, and then the minute that the session is over, you don't remember it
Yeah.
because you're so tuned in. So I have heard of other
Yeah.
psychic mediums and people in that world having that ability to channel clearly, and then once it's done, it's done. So
You really have to. If you don't, you're gonna blow up. Your mind is just gonna blow up. But I
right.
do feel more so from the the readings and tuning in and going into those different realities, also with the shamanism. This back and forth definitely messes with my memory, and I think that is kind of it's been a little bit of a drawback because I'm so used to just I need to forget that I just have no memory,
Yes.
But there's been a lot of different experiences that you just couldn't even believe. Yeah, and I can't think of one offhand.
Yes.
I'm sure after we get off of
Not
here,
a
I'll be
problem.
like,
It's
oh,
okay.
I have like a bunch of them.
I have an interesting question. So, have you ever had an experience with a client where you were channeling and doing your work and you found that in a past life you guys knew each other?
Yes.
Or maybe there was a connection somehow with your
Yeah.
client. Has that ever happened?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. There is a person that I've done weekly healing with for years, and her mother passed, and her mother has actually always, every session that we have, comes and helps with the healing. So it's been very special. But a while back, it came through that this woman and I had been sisters to the
Really?
mother. So we were, in a past life. So that definitely has come through, and I'm sure it has for others. I don't really go there with that, but I'm sure, in some part of our soul cluster family,
Yes.
a lot of people have been in my life. I've been in theirs.
Really, really neat. So do you
Yeah.
notice that with her that there is a connection? Like, is there like a sisterly bond or is there
I
like a
don't,
friend
I
connection?
wouldn't necessarily say that.
Okay.
Um, I try to keep it just more professionally, not try to, even though
Yes.
she's one that also is in this field, but you just I try not to think about that,
Yeah.
I don't want it to be weird.
Yes, absolutely. Totally
Yeah.
understand that. So do you ever work with other psychic mediums? Like, do they come to you for what you do? Because what you do is very specific. And then do you go
Mhm.
to them for what they do? Because what they need to do is very specific, excuse me.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I know a lot of people do that, but some, but not, not, it's more of healers. I wouldn't say, I've had other, like colleagues come to me for readings or anything like that, but I
Mhm.
know that a lot of them do, but I kind of don't put it out there. Um, to me, I just don't do
I get
that.
it. And there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that at
Yeah.
all.
It's
Each
like
its own.
your life is I don't, to me, it kind of crosses a little bit of a boundary,
Mhm.
but that's just me.
Yeah.
If I do psychic fairs and I see, readers trading reading, I just don't, no,
Yeah.
we're colleagues. I don't, it's just, no, you
Yes.
know,
I totally understand that. I don't
yeah,
blame you. And I think, if you're not careful, that could be uh, dangerous territory to go into.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
we all need to be respectful of our gifts and
right.
what we do.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
you can be
I have,
friendly, but
yeah, for healing, there's someone, more of a colleague that I've gone to, and I've had some come to me for, that's a little bit different than reading, but I work intuitively anyways,
mhm.
so they're usually getting a reading anyways if they come for a healing.
Yes. Okay. I am interested in talking more about there was something that else that you bring to the table, which is a DNA, kind of like DNA regeneration or DNA healing. Could you explain more about that?
Oh, that's part of the shamanic healing.
Okay. So with the shamanic healing, um, how do you bring in the DNA aspect to it, if I may ask?
That it just happens. It's not anything like so. Well, there's two different healing modalities, and I feel like any kind of healing modality can kind of address these types of things. But I think what you're referring to is a shamanic illumination, and
Mhm.
what that does is it clears an imprint, which is DNA in one of your chakras. So that's just energy wise, you're clearing that imprint, and that's affecting the DNA
Yes.
so that you can not have that pattern keep reappearing in your life.
Is it possible that during a shamanic healing session that you can, how do I say this, that you can basically like regenerate the DNA, or because there's ways that we can actually destroy our DNA.
Yes.
Is it possible that in a session you can actually DNA and kind of bring like a renewal to somebody who not only spiritually, but maybe through their health,
Yeah.
their
Yeah. Yeah.
mindset, through their emotions? Like, can they come
Yeah.
out a totally different
Yes.
individual?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I learned from the Four Winds, which is Alberto Villoldo, and he's very much into all of that, more the scientific kind of DNA. And I don't go there. So that's why I'm kind of laughing. Like, I'm all about the emotions. I don't know about the DNA so much, but tell me about the emotions, and that's where I like dig in, So
Yes. Yes. What would
if
you
we can
say?
clear the emotions, then we won't have the physical disease.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's
Hmm.
dis-ease. I
Yeah.
learned that when I was
Yeah.
in middle school.
Yeah.
Dis-ease. So you're right.
Yeah.
If we're able to balance our emotions and really kind of balance that logicality with being emotional, I
Hmm.
think we'd see a huge turnaround in our health. I really do.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yes. What separates you, Vicki, from other psychics that are out here in the industry working with clients, using their gifts? What would you say you bring to the table that makes you stand out?
I- what I hear from others, it's hard to look at yourself and talk, like say why, but what I've heard from others is that, I'm very down to earth, very approachable, very, I use humor. I'm, not judgmental. So people just feel so comfortable coming into my office and talking, with me. Cause it is, to me, we're having a conversation.
Yes.
So they just feel comfortable. You know, that's my biggest thing is my mission is, this world is tough, and I
Mhm.
want you to leave leave your time with me feeling better. Life is hard enough,
Yes, it
so
is.
so like people will say, you can just tell me anything, I don't care, I don't care if it's negative. Well, you can have something negative, but you don't have to um communicate it in a negative manner. So I can be more down to earth and say, what, this is something that, you could work on, or, change, not like this is going to happen and it's negative, negative, negative. Who wants that? Who needs that?
Yes.
So it is about lifting people up and feeling empowered. And that's what I try to do. So
So
a lot of people will say, well, I give it how I get it. Well, you can't do that. You can, but it's not necessarily the most productive way.
you would say that you're more of a compassionate
Yes.
healer and reader when it comes to your
Yes.
clients. You're
Yeah.
not direct.
Right.
Okay.
I have a
Um,
I have a background in counseling,
mm,
so spirit uses me kind of in that fashion. I found years ago that it turns into a conversation between the spirits asking me to start a conversation, and then they tell me what they want me to say to them, or bring a topic up that needs clarification. So it's all, I'm the voice of the spirit, but it's in a way that doesn't always appear that way. It's like more of a, people are like, I'm at counseling. People need to be heard though,
Yes.
so many
If
people aren't.
if you find that somebody during a session, if you feel or sense something very devastating, may I ask, how do you relay that news to that client? How would you go about it?
That they're gonna experience something like that? Is that what you mean?
Yes. So if you see that maybe a pattern that they're struggling with is due to a traumatic experience, or in the foreseeable future, something, maybe it's not something positive. Let me just say that maybe it's something more negative. How would you relay that information compassionately to your client?
Without judgment, just
Yes.
with love, no judgment. And again, you want people to be empowered. So like, I see that this could be something that's coming up for you, but
Mhm.
you could do this and this and this to prevent that, or to change the outcome. It's about really empowering people. Like, yeah, this is a possibility out here, but you have free will and you can choose different. So it is helping people kind of find ways of working, giving them ideas for solutions. So I feel
Mhm.
like I plant a lot of seeds to give people solutions, get them thinking about maybe how they could handle something differently, that they don't have to do it the same old way, that they can, there's other options.
Yes. I love that you said that you do it without judgment, because I'm sure you have a lot of clients that come to you
Hmm.
very vulnerable, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have a lot of delicate things that they want to talk about. And so
Right.
with the work that you do, it's important to not be judgmental.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really, um, you just put yourself outside, you step aside, you can't have those judgments. And I'm um, always double checking with the spirits, with the guides. Did I get this right before I say something that might be a little touchy? Is this right? Am I out of it? Am I, being a hollow bone? Is it, did I have it right? Because there's so many things you can, especially like you'll hear, like, um, things don't always mean what we think they mean.
Mhm.
So I'll be,
Absolutely.
and so a lot of times to me, I think it's a puzzle. We got to figure out this puzzle together. So I'm
Yes.
hearing, because I might just hear a word. Okay, I hear the word death. What, that doesn't mean someone's dying, but
Right.
what does it mean? And try to work through, like, what's going on in your life that's coming to an end, or instead of just throwing out there, well, I'm hearing, so and so is going to die. Well, that's not even maybe what the spirit is meaning.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's really important to just keep double checking and questioning yourself to make sure that you're not like assuming like, oh, that's what this means. Because it, I found so many times it's not at all
Yes.
what you would think as a human being, like they mean by a phrase.
Yes. Do you find that spirit talks to you in parables, or do you find that it's very literal and direct when spirit talks to you? If that makes
It,
sense what I'm asking.
it could be, it's both. So it all
Oh, okay.
depends. Yeah. It can be very symbolic or just very, like you and I are talking, but with
Yes.
just, a word or two and then a lot of feelings that, so it's kind of
Mhm.
putting the puzzle together. Like there,
Yeah.
I hear this word, but I'm feeling this, so that it's combining them to really get to what the message is.
Vicki, may I ask, where do you see yourself evolving as a psychic medium within the next 5 years? Like,
Oh, geez.
is there anything that you would like to do? Do you have any short-term goals that you'd like to accomplish? How do you see yourself growing?
I feel like I just keep learning. For me, if I'm not learning then and growing as a person and in my practices, I can't, I'm not happy. So it's, for me, it's
Mhm.
always more learning. It and every time I'm learning something, it's something I can share. So I'm not 100% sure, because I'm personally totally driven by spirit. Whatever, they have my journey, in front of
Yes.
them, and I kind of leave it up to them, so they guide me to what I should be doing. And so far, everything always seems to make sense and work out. I learned that early on, like, why do I have this desire to learn or take this or this type of class, and then I may not use it, but then, down the road, there's aspects of it that come into play. So it's all, to me, it's this big collective that just I have to learn.
Yes. Does your clientele expand past New York? Do you have people that are in different states or different
Yeah,
countries?
yeah, yeah. That's
Who's the
something I would like
farthest you?
to do more of. I do seem to tend to be more local, more local. Yeah, that's something that I definitely have put out there to expand. It hasn't quite happened how I envision it, but I just put it out there. Who needs me will find me. I haven't done a lot of other countries, I don't feel. So I wouldn't say like I'm international, like
Okay. I was
some
actually
are.
just about to ask, like, who is the
Yeah.
farthest client that you've ever,
Yeah.
what location is the farthest
Yeah.
client you've ever worked with?
I'm not honestly sure.
Yes.
I have had some, in other countries, but again, I wouldn't say I'm international. Um,
Okay.
I'm like a hometown girl.
A
but
hometown girl.
but it's kind of like I do read people in other states and stuff, but it is, yeah.
Do you find that you get a lot of support in your hometown?
I could. I'll leave
Okay.
it at that.
Okay.
I
Okay.
could, but um yeah, I kind of go outside of the community, if I
Oh,
need support. Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of unfortunately there's a lot of um I guess for me it's having boundaries again with
Mhm.
people, that you're kind of working with, and um I'd rather go somewhere where I'm not known,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
all.
Have you ever found that to be an issue when you're out in public? I mean, people referring to you as psychic medium or
No,
asking you
honestly,
questions?
no, because where I live there's tons of them, so every people, a lot of people think they are, so, or they
Yes.
are, either way. I People don't approach me like that, so
Mhm.
that's good.
Yeah, that's
And I
really
don't
good.
think I live in a smaller city, but I don't seem to run into a lot of people I've done readings for either, so it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Vicki, I appreciate you sitting with me and chatting with me today. And
Thank you.
before we end this show, I would like to know if someone was interested in getting a hold of you to get a
Yes.
shamanic healing session or a psychic
Hmm.
medium reading session. What platforms are you on? What's your website? What contact information do you have where you can talk about that right
Okay.
now so that people can find you?
Yeah. I do all of my work. It can be in person or virtual. So even like shamanic healing, very powerful working virtually. Honestly, it works really well. Um, and my website is VickiSnyder.com. Well, my name is right there. Vicki Snyder. That's how you spell it on the screen. Um, let's see. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I don't know all my names on them, but I think if you just search for me, and on my website, I think there's links there to them as well. You can call. Um, Again, a lot of ways to contact me are right on my website, my email, all of that. Do you want me to
Okay.
tell you what they are?
If you'd like to share.
Yeah. The email is I like to do email. Vicki Snyder 138 at gmail.com. So
Okay.
um yeah, but my website's the best way.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. If you'd like to get a hold of Vicki, you can either go to her website or visit her social media platforms, or you can actually send her an email as well. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Estrella podcast. My name is Danielle Miranda, and don't forget, if you would like to learn more about the Estrella platform that's launching soon, please visit estrella.chat. Thank you so much, Vicki. I
Thank
had an
you.
enjoyable time interviewing you.
Me too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.